I'll say the theme of the podcast again today. I was kind of leaning into, is AI changing marketing, or is it just exposing those who were never really that good at it?
So everybody that says, oh, AI is taking my job, no, you are surrendering yourself to AI, because if you haven't realized that AI is a co-creation intelligence platform in which you need to take your serious marketing skills, your experience, your taste, your curiosity, your creativity, and invent or reinvent or evolve the end product.
If you are marketing without data today, it's like driving with your windshield being blocked with 6 inches of snow. I mean, it's just not something you would do. But to Valerie's point, you still see it. It's still shocking. You still see agencies that are out there spending, $20,000 a month in Facebook ads, and there's no analytics, there's no dashboards, there's no nothing.
Welcome to SEO on Air, Valerie and Anthony. Thank you for joining us today. The recording is going to talk a lot about the authenticity of content, and we're excited to dive into it with both of you. So starting with Valerie, I'd love to learn a little bit about your background. Tell the viewers a little bit about your background and what you do, and about your agency.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to join this conversation. I know that AI is on everybody's minds. I founded my agency in 2003. So I've been through lots of transformations in marketing with social media, the highs and lows of economies. And I've always found ways to reinvent, scale, and evolve at a very fast pace. I have always relied on data analytics for clear decision making. And I think that's really served our clients well. So in 2003, I was 24 years old, starting my agency and learning all the ins and outs of running a business. And so I really feel like that early stage development positioned me well to work with clients on conservative growth benchmarks, right? When we work as an agency, our skill set is to scale the client's businesses. We want to see them generate leads for sales, marketing. We want them to be qualified. We want to be able to point to quantifiable analytics. So with AI, we're able to do that faster. We're able to get outputs faster, whether it's for SEO, advertising, or creative services. We can now upload all that type of juicy data, get information really quickly, pivot, scale, and continue on our trajectory. So for us, we are positioned this year as an AI growth partner. We still offer all of the standard marketing services that our clients have enjoyed over the last couple of decades, but we are powering all of our systems with AI, from SEO to advertising and social media to creative services.
It'll be interesting to dive into that expansion of AI inside your agency. I think that's one thing a lot of agencies are trying to figure out right now. And honestly, there's so many tools available that it's a question of which tools should I actually use or which ones are just noise. So it'll be excited to dive into some of that with you. And thank you for joining us today, Valerie. Anthony, I know you have a background in content specifically, and you've even written a book about how to make great content. Give us a little view of your world in the agency life.
Yeah, so I started from a little different perspective than Valerie did, where I was from the startup world. And back in the day, I was part of a small startup in New York City that scaled and had a pretty significant exit. And then from there, I went and I ran a series of tech companies that were all trying to get leads, trying to generate content, trying to, maximize their SEO to get new business in the door. Helped scale a couple companies. And then one day I woke up and was like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And so suddenly I thought I was going into tech support, was originally what we started as a HubSpot partner. And we ended up pivoting on our very first client, was this giant financial firm in New York City. And they came to us and like, hey, we just need you guys to figure out how to do content. And that one single conversation with this big CEO led me down this rabbit hole of content and SEO and how do you get traffic to a website. And that's just evolved dramatically for the last, 15 years. And I published my book just pre-AI, really making its breakout. And it's called Primal Storytelling, Marketing for Humans. And the reason for the subtitle was I just saw this landscape of brands that had, 1,000 blogs on their website, and you like pull up one of those blogs and you're like, oh my God, this is so bad. Who is reading this? And then you look at their analytics to Valerie's point, there's like 5 views and all of them are bots. It's like no one's reading that content because it was all written for SEO purposes to trick the search engine. So it was written for, and this is the funniest meme on the planet right now, is it's AI writing content that's only being viewed by bots that are searching around the internet for content and for SEO. And then the SEO that the bot is finding is informing everyone on their content plan that's being generated by content. And so what's happening is brands are generating content with AI that no one is ever going to read. The only thing even seeing it, all the analytics are bots.
That's a theme we're seeing across, I think, all the agencies that join the podcast is blogs written for bots or content written for people.
Well, it's when you start to separate this idea of marketing for an actual human being, for a living, breathing person who's trying to solve a problem, who's trying to answer a question, and then connecting them with a brand that can actually help them. That's what what's marketing for, as well as sell stuff.
I think you're like ahead of my first question. I'll say the theme of the podcast again today. I was kind of leaning into, is AI changing marketing, or is it just exposing those who were never really that good at it?
It's both.
Definitely both.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear where you guys are, like, tell me more about your opinions on like where it's maybe pulling some out, like filtering some out, and where those are standing out, because I think those are two super important things, especially as a lot of our viewers are going to be in the agency field themselves. They're wondering how to do the best for their customers, and it's not always crystal clear today. I want to get from two people I'd say are experts.
I mean, do we have a half a day to talk about this?
30 minutes, ready to go.
I'll give my little pitch on this. Last year, I feel like AI was the game changer, and the people that really embraced it realized that AI is here to help elevate strategy. And it requires creative, experienced, curious, analytical thinkers that can co-create with AI, right? Not go to AI and think AI is going to be the end-all, be-all answer and solve all the problems, i.e. why the content is so bad. Because it's written robotic. It's written for algorithms. It's not written for brand or humans. And so that is getting lost in it. But it's people like us that can reflect on that and realize that's bad content, bad marketing. So everybody that says, oh, AI is taking my job, no, you are surrendering yourself to AI, because if you haven't realized that AI is a co-creation intelligence platform in which you need to take your serious marketing skills, your experience, your taste, your curiosity, your creativity, and invent or reinvent or evolve the end product, whether that's brand, writing, SEO, etc. If you don't realize that, then yes, you are obsolete at this point. And that's also what this question is about. Is AI changing our jobs? Yes. But, what else is happening here with people that work in marketing, and why are they saying that I'm losing my job to AI? It's showing who's valuable in this discussion, in this era of intelligence. Are you smart enough to work with AI?
One of the things that, just to jump on that bandwagon, is that we're seeing is, a lot of times we're asked to do audits and to take a look at websites and, evaluate performance. And if you look back 10 years ago, there were tens of thousands of SEO companies all around the country. And, you go back even a little farther, they were getting you backlinks, they were doing technical SEO, and they would sell this package, anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 a month. And they would make you number one in your market. That was the promise. And over and over and over again, in the last 18 months, we've been coming in, companies saying, hey, we're getting no results online. We got some traffic, we have this SEO company. And then we'll take a look at the website, and I'm starting to have these conversations with CEOs and saying, look, this is a borderline scam, because all of the new platforms and with any kind of SEO, AI combination, is that you have technical SEO is done, right? It's done. It's complete. It's correct. That's not really an issue like it was. Backlinks is not what it was, right? And so then what work is actually being done on these websites? They're charging for SEO, but they're not generating new content. They're not building pillar pages. They're not building really valuable destination websites for a target market or for a persona. And I had a really difficult conversation with a CEO who'd invested over $40,000 in an SEO company and got no real work, like nothing, and I see that across the board. I think that scam has been exposed nationwide. There's very few companies that are leading with SEO only on the front end because it's just not valuable anymore. Are you seeing the same thing, Valerie?
Well, a lot of what you said, yes, I absolutely agree with. But I will say we're still getting clients that have really bad websites. The code is a mess, and it could go on for days cleaning that.
The existing websites are in a pretty
Existing websites that we're getting. And so I agree, with a lot of these new tools, you can see that really fast. But, to your point, is it a scam or is it incompetence, or maybe a little bit of both, right? Because even with our AI SEO strategies, whether it's geo or AO, or even there's a little bit of the regular SEO still running around, it was really easy. We could go to web pages, we could update a paragraph. Remember those days? It was so easy. Google be like, just keep your website fresh. Just, add a few paragraphs and, check the box and follow, eat and all that. But you're right. You now have to add all this authority driven content. So I think there's different types of whatever you want to call them. Geo, AO, SEO people, or technical SEO people running around out there. And right now, what we need more than anything are people that are strategic thinkers about how all of that AI is disrupting the traditional SEO in its content. And clients are also struggling with this because they're like, well, I already have a website. Why do I have to add more pages? Why do they have to be deep dives or guides on X subject and add all these pillars? And how long do I have to do that? Can I just do that for a few months and then it's good? I will say that the requirements are richer than they've ever been. And then, to your point, the technical people, maybe they've got a role to play with some of these broken down sites that surface, that we don't build, but we inherit. But it's now strategy and it's authority building. And even if the site has good pages, if it doesn't really offer any valuable authoritative information, the LLMs are not going to like it. So I think it's a little bit of both. It's the role has changed, the jig is up, and it also requires a different type of strategist to run this program, in my view.
The zero click aspect of LLMs and how people are using search today, and obviously not everybody because Google still has a lot of volume and majority of the volume. But I think of I was helping my wife set up a business, and she's a physical therapist, and it was asking for citations specifically in her pelvic floor physical therapy aspect of what she does. It wants to understand all the context of who she is. And then it'll communicate something to the customer through the LLMs, right? And it knows already what pelvic floor physical therapy is. It knows the different services that are typically provided. I'm curious because that content was typically generic on most websites that you just had to communicate to Google what you did. But now LLMs seem to be trying to understand the customer that's searching, and the company and connecting them at a very detailed level. What do you, I mean, you talk about content trees and some other stuff. Help me understand how we're adapting content today on websites versus how we did even just 3 or 4 years ago.
It really depends on the business itself. If it has a brick and mortar location, or if it's an online only business like a software company or a SaaS type model, that model matters dramatically because of how they're looking at the content and the location of the person who's searching. One of the things, and I'm not sure if you've noticed this, is that if you're located in Miami and I'm located in Helena, Montana, and we do a search that has anything that is local related, I search for chiropractors near me. Well, my results are going to be dramatically different than what Valerie's will be in Miami. Okay. But if I'm searching for an online solution to something, the competition is much harder, and the strategy and the sophistication of strategies that you need is just completely different. There is a huge opportunity for local businesses to dominate because so few local businesses put any real effort into building a valuable destination local site. Where you'll see on some of the more online businesses, they're investing a lot more for kind of a national strategy or even a worldwide strategy. It's just the competition is higher and it costs way more.
To answer your question specifically about the LLMs, you're right. They are looking for rich, authoritative, expert level content. And if you ask even ChatGPT, what type of content are you wanting to cite or reference, it's pointing to LLM optimized press releases or press and insights centers on the website, which is optimized for the LLMs. And it's not like a standard press release, like necessarily something I would take to the media and pitch, but news oriented or topical oriented. And we asked, well, we get clients press coverage regularly in big authoritative outlets. Are you noticing those? Are you able to pick those up? And the answer I got was a little frustrating because traditional PR and SEO usually work together. Right? It was always a good thing to get good coverage on a big site. And ChatGPT's response to me was, it's not exclusively about your client. You are in an article with other companies. If you really want us or the LLM to pay attention to this, it would need to be a press release all about your client. So it's got discernment there. And then it's looking at Reddit, it's looking at Substack, it's looking at LinkedIn articles. And again, this puts a lot of pressure back on brands to build all this content, which goes back to Anthony's point, these blogs are terrible, only the bots are reading them. So it does need to be expert driven. It needs to make sense. And it still needs to be in the brand voice and style of the client. It can't be just these robotic outputs. And then it wants all of this information to be housed or connected back on the website so that you're creating this ecosystem. It can't be duplicative, but it's got to create this web that is more authoritative driven. So your podcast, for example, I'm assuming this goes on the website with a transcript that the LLMs can see and read, and that's going to help your authority. So that's another example of what we're finding.
That's a great point. And I actually think, Anthony, I'd love to ask you about this as well. With the way you're producing content, we're actually seeing from a lot of agencies that they feel that written content is maybe losing its weight, and that video and other content that's really authentic, that can be proven to be human, is getting a lot more crawls for companies to add, SEO weight or authority to their websites. Are you seeing anything aligned there?
Yeah, for sure. And you see that, Google definitely rewards on website video, and it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be the Avengers, production with green screens. I mean, just, throw your cell phone in front of you and talk, and that can be good enough. And you see lots of low production value content that does very, very well.
Seems to be the pattern in traditional advertising right now, right?
It absolutely is. The other thing that you run into is that there's a reason why personal brands that are connected back to a company can be so effective. Because on social media, people follow people. They don't want to follow a brand. If you want to see a wasteland of content, go on LinkedIn and look at all the company pages. It's just awful, 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 awful. But you have a lot of CEOs, you had a lot of influencers who have their own companies that are doing really well. And that's because people want to be connected to real people. They want to have, some sort of connection to an actual human being. And that's why my whole point with marketing for humans is that we actually don't need more AI. We need more humanity. We need more personal connection. We need content that's valuable, but that is also vulnerable.
That brand is a really interesting thing. There was a video from Neil Patelli released recently that was talking about like the AEO, IEO, like AEO, GEO, everything optimization. And he specifically referred to the brand, which I've often referred to as like the company's brand across the internet being valuable. He used the term entity across the internet instead of brand, kind of talking about the reach of a company and how that like authenticity of appearing in multiple places shows what I think used to be like the link building aspect of like people were talking about you on the internet. So links kind of like brought that all back to build value for your company. Now that's just moved up a level into people are talking about you on the internet, but those platforms that they're talking about you are a little more verifiably authentic than they used to be. And now with so many people producing AI content across those platforms, it feels like there's more weight for value-driven content than there used to be, which I think is what we're talking about. So I'm going to ask a question on that long stretch there. With teams still using AI to produce like output, blogs, links, everything like that, where is the appropriate place for companies to use AI to generate growth for their clients? Where are you seeing the appropriate use of AI instead of just the output production increased in volume?
Well, part of it comes down to taking the time to train an agentic model that's in a brand voice, that understands the audience, and that has been designed in a way that it can create valuable content faster, and then have humans edit and make sure that it's on track. And I have not seen a really, really good model where AI only driven content is super successful. Instead, what you see lots of content ecosystem plans using AI tools to help generate it, have some SEO on the back end of it, and then start to think through strategies by platform. So whether you're LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook, and all slightly different ways you can publish, and then using the AI to do a framework, and then humans to add insight, to add character, to add voice, to add stories that AI can't do. One of the things that you run into with AI is that if 100 of the same kind of businesses go on ChatGPT and are all asking it for SEO-based content, so I'm a chiropractor and I want an article from ChatGPT that's related to something in my business. Well, how many chiropractors are getting a very similar article across ChatGPT for the same word, okay, for the same phrase, for the same general? And then when you go from local business to like a national business or a SaaS company, someone who's trying to do business all around, it's even harder in that the content that you can generate with insight and with character behind it is much harder to produce. And so then AI is just not valuable for them. It just isn't.
I think we could expand that for the rest of the day too. That's I think I saw it was a game streamer who was talking about like these they stream their games online, and everyone's starting to use the same AI tools to like auto clip their videos. But he's like, now you just get a different episode with the same content from like with like a different face from everybody. Like it's the same video with different visuals, but it's the same clips, the same words, the same tags that it's picking up on to see what's valuable, and not very interesting when you've seen it too many times in a row.
I just to echo some of the points that Anthony made. I agree with what he's saying. What I've been noticing, and this is what we're getting asked to do, is start more on the strategy side of the system. Because, as you brought up, I don't know if we were on air yet, about tools. Tools are great, and you can spend all day auditing tools. But it starts with, what do you need AI to do? And so that's our focus. Our niche is growth. When we get these complex questions, build a full-scale funnel integrated lead gen engine for an aviation business or a logistics business, right? So what we're looking at is a deep dive across the industry, across their brand, across where their growth goals are, what growth are they already experiencing, and we're designing AI systems to structure that strategy first, then build out the additional infrastructure with AI, which kind of leads into some of the stuff that Anthony was describing. But our role is being brought in more early on growth and AI systems implementation and helping those clients figure out what tools, what platforms, what advertising, messaging, brand voice, videos, all of it are needed to hit those growth numbers. So our approach is more on that side early on. And then as it's needed, we build out the other architecture to support, whether it's SEO or content or videos or, AI creative, whatever it might be. So I think that is one of the most powerful aspects of AI right now, is being able to design that architecture and those systems.
Anthony, I know that you've had experience scaling companies up, so I'm curious to hear, I mean, a lot of what those systems are, you probably had to do a few times. And actually, maybe let me tie this back to something you said earlier. You mentioned the scam side of marketing, which is funny. I watched a video recently. It was a training video for people starting businesses in a certain field. And they mentioned that like 80% of the marketing agents, I think that's the number they used, 80% of the marketing agencies you're going to use have no idea what they're doing. They're just going to take your money because they get paid no matter what. So they'll take your money, they'll do some marketing services. If it worked, great. If it didn't work, great. They got paid and they just send you on your way. And I think that that's an interesting perspective, Valerie, about how complicated the analysis is, because what we're seeing today is advertisements for an AI only marketing like firm, right? Like this AI is going to do all your marketing services for you. And Anthony, your comments about quality content not even being possible with just an AI, that it can't create on its own. It requires a human brain to create something separate. I want to ask you guys, and I know this is a tough question, what should a customer look for in an agency to see that they're more than that other 80%?
So first is the price. And if someone is promising you the world for $400 a month or $500 a month or $700 a month, and you're seeing these, I see these ads on Facebook now. There's all these young kids running this, we'll scale your Facebook ads for $400 a month, blah, blah, blah. And it's just flat out not true. And it's demonstrably false. There's just, but then as you go up in, they're selling to very small mom and pop type shops, local businesses. And as you go up the ecosystem to real companies that understand the investment that it takes to put together to Valerie's point, a national strategy that's including all of the components of creating a go-to-market for a brand that's, doing millions of dollars, is that That's not something that you do for $500. So that's, and it's interesting is that I think what happens is if you go back 30 years ago, if you wanted to hire an agency, you went to New York City, you went to Madison Avenue, and you're looking for the big creative brands. And there's still a lot of those companies around, these $50 million marketing companies. And I'm friends with a number of those owners. And all of them are using AI to do data and analysis and agentic help with the creative, but they're still employing a fleet of actual creatives on site, real people that are doing it because AI is just not insightful. And most of the agentic kind of marketing that you're seeing, like, are you familiar with OpenClaw at all?
I haven't used it, but I know of it. Yeah.
So OpenClaw is, it's kind of an open source. You can take a computer, you create an AI agent on a single computer, and then you give it access to files and things. And there's all these companies coming out now saying that OpenClaw is running my entire business and it's doing everything for me.
I've used Claude Code and Claude Cowork.
Yeah. So Claude is much, much more refined, but it has barriers to it. Where some of these other agents, you can have it actually run your computer and do lots of things for you. Well, there's companies now that are trying to employ those models to do everything, like to replace full people. And what they're missing out is that any repeatable task that doesn't take a lot of insight, that's a great task for AI to automate away. But something that really needs character and thought and creativity applied to it, like your business is safe. There's no AI out there. Claude's not doing that. Grok is not doing that. ChatGPT is certainly not doing that. I would challenge that I could beat any AI with content on the planet, hands down. Like, I'm not even.
His black belt mentality is coming out.
Well, where do you guys see? I mean, finding the right agency is going to be complicated. Valerie, did you want to jump in on that?
Well, I appreciate all the comments that Anthony made on price, but it was something that was a big eye opener for us this year. We always provide live dashboards. So you can see how many leads did we generate? What was the cost? What were the ads? You can see all the ads. There's full transparency into everything that we're doing. It's not a secret. And it's been amazing how many new clients or proposals that we pitched on that this was a problem for them, where they had a previous agency that wasn't providing any data, any live dashboards, any details about what they were doing. I think that is like a big red flag. And as a growth agency, we are basically signing up and saying, okay, this is the plan. This is how many leads we're anticipating. Now you can see all that activity in your dashboard. And any agency that isn't willing to pull the curtain back is a red flag in my view, because back to your point, they're going to sell you a bunch of marketing services or advertising services and just pray it works. And then they don't tell you what's going on. But just this year alone, and I think too, it's because the market is volatile, more brands are asking for that transparency. And it's just something we've always done. We've always provided access to those dashboards, but we took that for granted as something that just should be done. And so to me, that's a deal breaker. If your agency isn't going to be able to report beyond vanity metrics like impressions or reach or whatever, and they're not going to be able to actually tell you spent this and you got these leads and this was the cost per lead, right? That's a red flag.
I think that's really interesting because I've been working on some marketing plans myself, and the depth of, I mean, just talking about the national brand and how much my mind was fragmented on a local brand, on all the different avenues that we needed to go down to try to build things out. I think of the value of that communication, that it's not necessarily that you can't do all these things yourself in marketing. I think that's where it gets really cool, is like, you could do your social media, you could do your website, you could figure this out. But an agency has figured out this strategy for however long you've been in business, for however many companies in the same industry with a similar voice. They understand all of that well before the customers even like thought the questions out, and they're starting to take action on optimizing it so that you don't spend $10,000 on Google ads that were very poorly optimized with very big broad matches that maybe a AI system recommended to you because it doesn't know the search intent of your ICP.
One of the things that also has happened with AI is that the access to API integrations, that the cost of that has basically become zero. And so what happens is if you're going to market for a brand and they don't have a CRM already implemented, we immediately implement it for them. That's part of every engagement, because we need a place to capture data, a place to do, agentic analysis so that we can understand like what the heck is working and what's not. And is the cost per acquiring a client, does it make sense? And is it scaling, not just revenue, but profitability? And my whole thing is that if you are marketing without data today, it's like driving with your windshield being blocked with 6 inches of snow. I mean, it's just not something you would do. But to Valerie's point, you still see it. It's still shocking. You still see agencies that are out there spending, $20,000 a month in Facebook ads, and there's no analytics, there's no dashboards, there's no nothing.
Or no pixel. There's no pixel tracking. There's no thank you page. It's unreal. I don't. But what's sad is that they tell the client that they can't get that data for them.
Yeah, amateur hour is always a shock.
Well, or it's just a scam. Or I mean, all of it. And then we show up, right? And they're like, wow, this was all possible. It was all available this whole time.
Just not for $400, right?
Well, no, but to Anthony's point, like, there's so many clients that have gotten burned on big budgets. And the philosophy is, let's get as much money out of the customer right away before they realize that we're not going to be able to produce a return for them. And that's a hustle. And that's something else that people need to watch out for.
Let me tell you just a little story. I know you're running out of time. The bane of my existence is I get hired by a brand, right? And maybe they pay us, maybe they're paying us $40,000 or $50,000. And then we'll negotiate an entire deal. They will ask us to do something, and they recognize it's something that we've done over and over again. I suspect that I know what I'm doing, been doing it for a really long time and had lots of success. And then the person on the brand side who is in charge of everything is 23 years old, just graduated from college, and they have a degree in marketing, in branding, or maybe not anything like that. And then they argue with us and they're questioning every single thing that we're doing, and we can't get a project across the board because we have this young person with no experience, with no skills, no expertise, is managing everything. And those projects fail. They fail. And it's what happens is that they don't have a mechanism internally to recognize like what actually should be done and what is the next step. And,
you've defined how agencies are having their customers use AI to question everything without full context and come in to say that, hey, what if we did this instead? And the agency is like,
yeah, we're seeing that also. We're also seeing that, some of it, but at least I'll say our clients have been really good about asking us what we think versus, oh, I want you to start doing that because AI said it, But Anthony, I have to beat you up a little bit on the comment about the young people, because I was a young gunner when I started my agency at age 20. But I think there's a difference here with what the landscape is just different with the AI and the power of the tool. And I keep telling my team, this is not a toy. If you think it's a toy, it's going to hurt you very badly. Proceed with caution. And, so it used to be like back in the day, good ads were based on great creative ideas. And we just rolled them out, right? Before we had any real data or analytics. But today, it is very different. And if you don't understand analytics or data or what data to give AI, I don't care if you're young or old, that's a huge problem. And you are equally problematic for the strategy team if you don't understand those insights before you make recommendations and start driving that car off a cliff, right, with bad data. So in my view now, in this era that we're in, a lot of the creative decisions can be made with good data analytics, personas, that systems build out, and then you can go to market with a really strong set of creatives where in the past, more than a decade ago, it was, is this a good idea? Maybe it's a great idea. Maybe it's funny. Maybe it's sexy. Let's try it. But we don't have that luxury anymore. And it's actually a good thing because it conserves budget. It's more economical. It's more scalable. So I just want to preference young, old. You can still screw it all up.
I like the idea of being willing to go against the data in the creative world we're at today, where everything might look similar if the data's driving all decision making, and having people that are going against the grain being the ones that stand out in a unique way too. I have one final question for the two of you, which is probably the hardest question of the day. And you only get like a minute to answer it. So I'm going to make it really hard on you. With the changes happening so quickly in marketing over the last few years, where do you see the evolution of marketing agencies? What are they going to be doing different a year or two from now than they are today?
In my view, it goes back to the systems and the architecture. And I think the value in the agency is going to be those thought leaders that emerge that really know how to co-create with AI. And there's only a small percentage of the population right now that's using AI in this way. If you go on ChatGPT, you can inquire about that statistic, but it's about 5 to 10%. And if you ask what are the characteristics of these strategic architects, it is experience, taste, curiosity, creative, and that strategic thinking that you can push back on AI and build something with AI versus letting AI dictate and drive all those decisions for you. So I really think the value in the agency is elevated thought leaders, strategists, co-creators that are going to be able to create this new foundation for brands. And that's going to be a lot of the strategic value that comes out of the agencies.
I can't imagine Anthony disagrees at all. Tell me, Anthony, where do you see the evolution of marketing over the next year or two?
One of the pieces of that puzzle is going to be humility, and knowing that we don't have a crystal ball. We can't predict where the market is going to go. But one thing that AI gives us is the power to iterate much faster than before, and to do tests in a way that just weren't possible even 3 or 4 years ago. So one of the things that we've implemented with every single client is we'll do dozens and dozens of small micro tests and then let the data tell us what's working, what kinds of messages are working, what kinds of content is working in any given market with any given avatar. And then very, very quickly, for a small amount of money, determine with data what is working to go to market, so that when we scale ads, when we scale content, that we actually have real data that's informing us. And I think as we go forward, what's going to happen is AI will know more. It'll be easier to do analysis than it is even now. And that a brand that goes to market without an AI analysis, without testing, is going to fail. And they're not going to be able to beat their competitors. Whereas right now, I think we're just on the cusp of really being able to do deep analysis, and that deep analysis is going to separate the winners and the losers.
I've seen a lot of LinkedIn post recently about using Google Ads to figure out which content you should actually be posting for your SEO content. Is that aligned with how you're envisioning that?
And it's not just Google Ads. It's every platform. It's YouTube, it's Facebook, it's LinkedIn, it's Grok, it's X. You can test, you can find out what works and what doesn't, and then very quickly implement and scale.
I think that we probably need to unpack this podcast for everyone listening and take it section by section and dissect it. I think, Valerie, you were right when we probably needed half a day. I appreciate both of you joining me on this episode of SEO on Air. I feel like we really had some insightful stuff. And I think one of the things that I take away from this is just that finding the right agency is really about finding the agency that's going to do the deeper assessments and show the work done. I think that's a really fascinating. It doesn't seem like much because it's like a contractor that doesn't want to sell every individual board to you. He just wants to sell the whole service. But marketing is expanded, and visibility is a big part of that success today. So I thank you guys again for joining us, and we'll see you next time on SEO on Air.